momentarily. That indicates that it's being recorded. We're going to ask for questions at the end of each of our sections. So there'll be plenty of opportunity. We really want this to be interactive morning spent together. Just put your hand up via chat, or you can put with your little emoji, or you can put your questions in chat as well, and we'll try to pay attention to all of that. And finally, we're gonna take a short break during the meeting. So if you can wait until that break to do things that might come up during the next 2 hours, that would be great. We are going to try to do everything we can to end on time at noon, and be respectful of everyone's time. What I think I want to do right now is start with introductions, just so we all know who is here, and then I'll talk a little bit about what our visions are for the regional housing partnerships quickly, and then we'll go through agenda, and then I will pass it off to Tiffany. So that's what your next probably 20-25 minutes is going to look like. Introductions is always tricky on teams with this many folks, but let's give it a go, because I think it's important that we all get to know each other. We're going to be a group of folks that work together hand in hand, that share ideas, that share frustrations. And so we really need to take the time to do the introductions, even though I know it's going to take a minute. And then we're likely going to have some quarterly meetings going forward, and we'll try to do some of those in person and hybrid. We know it's not easy for everyone across the state to get to know each other, but sometimes it's also nice to be able to meet each other in person. So we'll kind of play that by ear going forward, getting input from all of you. So I'm going to start, and then I will also try to hit our MSHDA staff first. And then I'm going to do my best to maybe call on folks so that we don't have people jumping on each other, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm Amy Hovey. For those of you who have not met me, as I said, I look forward to meeting all of you. I am the executive director at MSHDA. And then Tiffany, I will bounce it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Tiffany King within MSHDA's Office of Equity and Engagement. I'll turn it over to Karen.
Hey, good morning. I'm Karen Gagnon, Senior Policy Advisor in the Office of Equity and Engagement. Glad you're here. And I'm going to toss it to Odessa Carson.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. My name is Odessa Carson. I'm also in MSHDA's Office of Equity and Engagement. And I am going to pass it over to David Ivan.
Oh, we got a couple more MSHDA folks. Hold on,
Oh,
we got a couple other MSHDA folks. I want to make sure. Tim Klont is a new employee with MSHDA and will actually be overseeing the statewide housing plan and its implementation. So Tim, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Sorry, Tim.
Great. That's okay. Thank you. Good morning. Tim Klont, Director of Partnerships and Engagement. And I see my colleague, Dave Allen. So you're next.
Oh, Dave, you're muted. It had to happen in this meeting, and you got it out of the way. So there you go.
Yay! Hooray! Well, good for me, I guess. So good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Dave Allen. I manage the Office of Market Research for MSHDA.
Great. And then Lisa, I don't know if you want to pop on and just say hi.
Sure. I'm Lisa Ward. I'm in the executive office. I assist Amy and everyone. So if you have questions, let me know.
Yeah, she's the one that helps make it all happen. So thank you, Lisa. Am I missing anyone else from MSHDA? No. Okay, so I'm going to just go through line by line on my screen and on my participant list quickly as I can. Again, just do a quick introduction because there's 55 of us here, so we can't take a minute. We need to take like 10 seconds a person. So Bill Ernott, if I mispronounced it, please correct it.
It's Bill Ernott. I'm with the East Michigan Council of Governments.
Nice, welcome. Lenny Avery.
Good morning, Lenny Avery, Economic Development Coordinator for Target Alpena.
Nice. Go Target Alpena. Brooke Osterman.
Good morning. My name is Brooke Osterman, and I am the director of an initiative called Housing Next. So we will be in the West Michigan Partnership. We've been working in Ottawa and Kent counties over the last few years and looking forward to expanding our support.
Erica Patton.
Hi, I'm Erica with Integrated Services at Kalamazoo. I'm the housing manager, and we will be co-leading in Region 8.
Eric Brown.
Good morning, Eric Brown, President and CEO, Urban League of West Michigan, working with the Right Place and Housing Next.
Ivan, not Alan.
Yeah, it's a couple of Davids. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dave Ivan. I work for MSU Extension, and our team will be working with you on this process if you choose.
Jeff Hagan.
Good morning, Jeff Hagan from Eastern UP Regional Planning, and I've got Kim Wilcox from our office here with me.
Hello, Kim, as well. Sheila Taylor.
Good morning. I am Sheila from Genesee County Metropolitan Planning Commission, staff for Region 5 Planning, and we are co-leading with Communities First for Region 6.
Welcome. Lindsay Gardner.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Gardner with MSU Extension and one of the facilitators. Looking forward to working with you all.
I've seen you in action. She's a great facilitator. Awesome. Toby Berry.
Hi, I'm Toby Berry. I'm the CEO here at Community Action Agency, and we cover Jackson, Lenawee, and Hillsdale counties.
Oh, everybody's moving now on my screen. Everybody. Yvette Transu.
Hello, I am Yvette Transu from the Pontiac Housing Commission. I am the deputy director, and our agency is one of the quad leads. I think we're the only quad lead for our region, covering, I believe, Oakland County. Nice to see everyone. Ready to work.
Joe Arnold, you just popped up on my screen, so you get to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hey everybody, Joel Arnold here at Communities First, and we are co-leading in Region 6 with the Genesee County Metropolitan Planning Commission.
Emily Reese with CEDAM.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Half my family says Reese, half my family says Rice. So either way, I'm the Director of Communications and Training at CEDAM.
Welcome. Joe Nolan.
Morning, everyone. Joe Nolan here, Chippewa-Loose Mackinac Community Action Agency. One of the co-leads up here with you.
Michelle LaJoy.
Good morning, Michelle LaJoy from Chippewa. Joe, I'm saying your agency. I'm so sorry. For Community Action, Elder Marquette. So you see how close we are. And then who's on the call with me is Alex Leto Clark from our agency. Also, we are the co-lead with QPAD.
Great. Hey, if everyone could do me a quick favor, if you've been introduced, click off your camera for a second. If you haven't been introduced, click on your camera for a second. So it'll just help me make sure I'm not missing anyone. Okay, thank you. Dottie LaJoy.
Hi, I'm Dottie LaJoy. I'm the Executive Director of Central UP Planning.
Eric Walcott.
Hi, I'm part of the facilitation team with Michigan State University Extension based in East Lansing.
Great, welcome. Kristen Elliott.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Elliott. I'm with Community Housing Network, and I'm one of the quad leads in Oakland County.
Jacob Wilson.
Good morning, Jacob Wilson, Program Associate with Pontiac Community Foundation.
Vicki Wolber. It looks like you have two people, maybe.
Yes. Good morning, Vicki Wolber. I'm with the County Exec's Office as well as Interim Health and Community Services Director for the county. And with me today is Andrew Cox, who is Director of our Health Department. Glad to be
In
here.
which county? Which county, Vicki?
Sorry, Macomb County. And we're the
Macomb
lead
County.
for Macomb.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Yarrow Brown.
Hi, I'm Yarrow Brown, Executive Director of Housing North, and we cover, I guess, Region D for the partnership will be the lead, and maybe Region 2 as well. Don't know which ones we're referring to. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Okay, Courtney, I'm going to slaughter the last name. Hirely. Just correct
Hi,
me.
good morning. It's Courtney Herlahai. That's okay. I'm the interim executive director for our Green and Healthy Homes team here at Wayne Metropolitan Community Action Agency, and we'll be the lead for out Wayne County.
Okay, great. Okay, I might get this wrong too. You guys got to give me a little grace here. Diaja Butler.
Asia Butler. I work with Courtney at Wayne Metro Community Action Agency, the out Wayne County Continuum of Care. So we're working with Region N.
Welcome. Bradley Newman.
Hi, with MSU Extension, part of the facilitation team. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see, what do we have? Anthony Kelly.
Good morning. Anthony Kelly, planner with the Genesee County Metropolitan Planning Commission.
Welcome. See, we're getting down there. Look at how efficient we're being in this. Luke Forrest, you're next on my list.
Morning, everybody. I'm Luke. I'm the Executive Director of CEDAM. I'll be talking to you more a little bit later in the agenda. Look forward to working with everybody.
Travis Alden.
Yeah, morning, everybody. Travis Alden, Senior Director of Community Development at The Right Place, Regional Economic Development Organization in West Michigan, and super excited to be leading Region 4/F with my friends at Housing Next and the West Michigan Urban League.
Welcome. Elise Springer, did I pronounce that correctly?
You did, thank you. I'm Elise Springer with Alyssa Detroit. I'm the Senior Program Manager, and we will be co-leading with CDAD in Region 10.
Welcome. Camille Walker Banks.
Hello, everyone. I am also with this Local Initiative Support Corporation, and we will be leading the charge in partnership with CDAD, as Elise mentioned, in Detroit. We're happy to be here. Hello, Amy.
Hello. We'll just stick with Liz because I see Victor is on my screen.
Yes, good morning, Amy and everybody. This is Victor Abla. I am with Detroit LISC with Camille and Elise in the Detroit region, co-leading with CDAD.
I am.
Welcome. Emma Gilbert.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma Gilbert, and I am with Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, and we are co-leading Region I.
Welcome. Ashley Burton.
Hi, I'm Ashley Burton. I'm the Grants and Community Manager for the Alliance for Housing, which is Oakland County's continuum of care, and we're quad leading for Region L.
Julie Hale Smith.
Good morning, everyone. Julie Hale Smith. I am a consultant working to help implement the statewide housing plan.
And just a reminder for folks who may have just jumped on, if you've been introduced, turn off your camera. If you haven't been introduced, pop on your camera, which will help me make sure I don't miss anybody. Carrie.
Good morning. Excuse me. I'm Carrie Sherman with the Urban League of West Michigan, Manager of Housing and Community Development. And you've met all of my partners for our tri-lead, working with The Right Place and Housing Next.
Nicole Baumer.
Hi there. Thanks so much. Nicole Baumer, Deputy Director at the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. We are co-leading for the Greater Lansing area with the Capital Area Housing Partnership.
Welcome. Sarah Niskanen? Just correct me.
Niskanen.
Okay,
nope, you got it. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Sarah Niskanen with Pontiac Community Foundation. We are quad leading in Region L.
Welcome. Tammy Natho.
I'm Tammy Natho with Integrated Services of Kalamazoo, co-leading in Region 8.
Welcome. Ryan Saucy, is that right?
Hi, good morning. Ryan Susi, and I'm a senior planner with Central UP Planning and Development Region, co-leading Region 1B with Community Action Alger Marquette. Thank you.
Right. Welcome. Almost there, folks. Vernon Gustafson.
Very good. Vern Gustafson, project director planner for the Pontiac Housing Commission. We're one of 4 quad leaders in Oakland County.
Welcome. Raleigh Van Fossen.
Morning, Raleigh Van Fossen, Executive Director at Capital Area Housing Partnership. We're co-leading for Ingham, Clinton, and Eaton counties.
Katrina Hardcore.
Katrina Harcourt. I work with Jeff Hagan at EUP Regional Planning.
Good morning. All right, Emily Petz.
Hi, I'm Emily Petz. I am from the WE UpGen Institute in Kalamazoo. We are co-leading with ISK, Integrative Services of Kalamazoo. Tammy just introduced herself earlier. I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Okay, Mary Ann Heidman.
Hi, Mary Ann Heidemann. I'm a regional planner working for Jeff Hagan at the Eastern Upper Peninsula Planning Commission.
And then Natalie Broda.
Hi, yep, Natalie Broda, Communications Director for the Pontiac Housing Commission, part of the Quad Lead for Oakland County.
Good morning. And then in the chat, we have Angela Carlberg. Hopefully I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Her video is not working, but she is the Director of Community Development Ecosystem Building with CDADS. And Joel, you did already introduce yourself, correct? Okay, good. So, and now if you want to turn your cameras on, everybody can or not, it's up to you. But thank you for bearing with us on that. I think we did a great job. I mean, we got a lot of people introduced in a very short period of time, but I thought it was important that we just start to get to know each other a little bit.
Amy, before you continue, let me just quickly ask a couple things for housekeeping, or not housekeeping, but for notes. Carrie, can you tell me your last name? Again. There's a K-A-R-I.
My apologies. It's Sherman.
Okay. Yep. Recognize it. And then there are 2 phone numbers coming in. And one is the 906. Can you introduce yourself?
Is this it? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can.
Okay, good. We're having audio and video issues. So anyway, this is Jerry Warma, Executive Director, Western UP Planning and Development Region, lead for Region A, I believe. And I have 2 others with me here.
This is Mary Ellen Hickanen. I'm the office manager, and I will be helping with the regional housing plan also.
Lisa McKenzie, Assistant Regional Planner with Whoopeter.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a 989-992 number.
Yeah, that's me, Bill Arnett. I'm having some audio problems with the computer, so I'm on both.
Okay.
All right. Did we miss anyone else? I think there was a hand raised, but I didn't get to it, and now the hand is gone.
And we got it, Lenny. You're with Region E.
Okay.
Target
Odessa
Alpena.
Did you have your hand raised? Okay.
That was an accident. Sorry.
That's okay. So welcome. We're so excited you guys are here. Let me just start by saying thank you, thank you, thank you. We are trying to do something that we have not done before, and it's going to be bumpy. But we appreciate you guys having the courage to embark in this process with us at MSHDA. It shows true leadership in your region and throughout the state, and your passion and caring for housing and making sure that everyone has, you know, a quality place to live. So I appreciate you. We all do at MSHDA, not just me. And I want to also just come out with all the grace you all just provided me with all my mispronunciations of your names. Please continue to give the MSHDA staff and MSU and CMR partners in getting this done grace as we move through this process. We're going to learn a lot from each other. We're going to do some things that don't work, and we're going to make some pivots and changes, and we're going to do things that do work. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about taking the statewide housing plan and actually putting it on the ground in the different regions. Creating regional plans, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, which, as you all know, are just subset of the state plan. But also at MSHDA, we're really dedicated in helping to provide funding for those plans. Your role is big, right? You're going to be helping to make sure that all the voices in your regions are heard, that people have some agreement about what the priorities are in your region, and helping to convey that information to MSHDA and the other folks that are on the statewide housing partnership. So if you recall, we have the statewide housing partnership that was created by the governor, and she appointed the statewide housing partnership committee members for that. And they're really there as a resource for the regional housing partnership. So they're going to oversee the plan. They're going to make sure that MSHDA and other state agencies are doing what we're supposed to be doing to help meet those statewide goals, those goals that really need state purview and state pushing them forward. But they're also going to be there paying attention to what the regional housing partnerships are doing, looking at what challenges and barriers that you guys may be reporting up and helping to address those challenges and barriers. And then also making sure that MSHDA is doing what we said we were going to do, which is support the regions, both from a capacity standpoint as well as a funding standpoint. So, and what does some of that mean? I think you were told initially that we were going to provide a $75,000 grant to help support the regional housing partnership leads. Well, that was wrong, not intentionally wrong. That is what we plan to do. We are making a slight change to that. And we're going to give 100,000 for the first year instead of 75,000. We've heard a lot of feedback from folks that there needs to be a little bit of additional funding because of the harder lift initially in getting a plan in place and kind of getting communication structures in place and all of that infrastructure that you're going to be putting together to move the plan forward. So we are going to increase those initial first year grants to 100,000. And then we are planning on year two, going back down to the 75,000. So good news that we're going to increase the first year, but really kind of set that expectation that for year two, it'll be 75,000, knowing that we're going to continue to look at how this is going. So that, in being 100% transparent with all of you, that's our plan right now. Again, if we need to change, if things aren't working the way they need to work, we might make some changes along the way. So we want this to continue on even beyond the next 2 years, right? This plan is going to be a 4-year plan. We have 4 more years to implement the statewide plan under the current structure. So we're really dedicated to doing that. But our hope is, like, we love this structure and we want to keep this structure ongoing beyond that period. I see this as not only us helping the state fund your priorities, but also as creating this communication that is much more deep than it has been in the past, meaning we're going to have all of you and the members of your regional housing partnership in which to create these kind of two-way engagements, right? We'll get better feedback on our program and be able to alter better feedback on what's needed as far as capacity and all of that. Let's see. We are going to provide some capacity, and I know Tiffany and others will get into this with MSU, helping with some of these initial meetings, helping to facilitate and work with you all on building the collaboration. And so I'm going to let them get into that into more detail. You do not need to pay for that out of your 100,000. We are going to provide for that assistance through MSHDA. And then we also have our partners at CEDAM who are also going to provide some help. And they're going to talk a little bit more about that, about kind of helping us with identifying ongoing kind of trainings that might be useful to you as leads, whether it's in facilitation, collaboration building, whatever that may be, or specific product training. And then also help with communications, because communications are key to making this work, right? We need not just to hear from the regional housing partnership leads, but we want to make sure that we're hearing all the voices within your region. So they're going to also provide some support there. Couple more things before I can pass this on to other folks is you're going to hear, and you might have heard, that we're going to push you really hard to get your regional housing plans done by the end of summer. And we are. And I want to apologize for that, but I also want to explain why. One, we're going to give you the help, and we've created a template to hopefully make it very easy to get those sub plans created, because they're really sub plans of the statewide housing plan. But also, I want to fund your plans. And at MSHDA, we have new funding coming October 1, and we're going to have to make decisions on how to deploy that funding in October, right? Because that's when it'll become available. What I'd like from you all is to know what it is I'm supposed to be, MSHDA's supposed to be doing with those funds prior to October 1. So that's why we're really pushing you all hard to try to get your plans done by the end of the summer. As you go through the process, if it's feeling uncomfortable and you're feeling like you can't do it, just talk to our staff, talk to Tim or Tiffany or Karen or Odessa. We're going to get you some additional help to get you there. You're not in this alone. We know we're asking a lot, but we're going to get through it together. So hopefully that kind of explains a little bit of why we're pushing the time frame for the action plans. I think the last thing that was on my to-do list to cover was the things that we're doing legislatively at MSHDA to help support the plans. We have a new tool that we're hoping gets through pretty quickly, and that's using tax increment financing for housing subsidy, which is going to be a really cool tool if we can get it done. It will allow for single family, multifamily, for sale, rental, rehab, new construction, really anything. And you can build the housing anywhere. So really pretty flexible. That has been approved out of the Senate. It's been approved in the subcommittee in the House. We're hoping that gets pushed out of committee next Tuesday to the floor of the House and then back to the Senate. So we're excited for that. We also have a bunch of packages going out of bills from us to really help improve our programs. So they're not necessarily bills to give us new programs, but to improve our current programs. And some of those are around the Housing Community Development Fund. That legislation has been introduced in the Senate, and it's really to increase the flexibility of that fund. That fund was created a couple decades ago, and it had a lot of targets that fund had to meet. The reason why we're asking for more flexibility is so that we can respond to your needs as regional housing partnerships. And I don't want to have to come to you and say 25% of your ask has to be for rental when really you want to use it all for home ownership, or you want to use it for capacity building or whatever. So we're really trying to get some flexibility in that. We're also asking for some increase in our single mortgage product so that we can get more folks able to use that product. Recently, as in just last week, we increased our DPA to $10,000. That's associated with our mortgage product to help get people in homes. We're also right now looking at increasing it for some areas of high need to up to $15,000. So we don't have that done yet, but we will hopefully be getting there. And I think, unless Tiffany, there was something else you wanted me to talk about, I think I have what I am supposed to cover today. Is there anything in the chat that I need to address? Let's see, end of summer, Q3. Yes, we're hoping by like, yes, the end of August, if at all possible, is what I'm seeing by end of summer. And then Lenny Avery, you had a question about our landlord program, and I'm not sure what that program is. But
That
if
is the
you can-
program that you guys had through COVID that you would provide
the Sarah
rental
program?
rehab. Yes, yes. Are you guys going to continue that, because that's kind of the rural bread and butter for a lot of things up here?
So it was rental rehab you were talking about, or the rental assistance with rent payments?
Rent payments and
Okay.
go ahead.
So the Sarah program is no longer, it is closed. It was really a COVID support program. So that program is no longer in existence. We do have a program within the Housing Community Development Fund that is looking at eviction prevention for tenants. And I think what we could do, if you're interested, is maybe we'll send you direct information on that program, as not to take up this 2 hours. And we can even connect you with a one-on-one call with folks from that area, Lenny, so you can get some more info on that. Okay, anything else for me before I pass it over to Tiffany? Okay, let's go.
And Lisa, if you can share the PowerPoint, then we'll get started with the presentation. All right. So next slide, implementation framework. So this slide was presented at the regional kickoff meetings, and I'll just briefly talk a little bit about the framework. As Amy mentioned, the statewide housing partnership was established by the governor. It is Executive Order 2022-10, and that charges the partnership with overseeing the implementation of the statewide housing plan. It includes, as part of that membership, there are 5 state agencies that make up the partnership. That's the Department of Health and Human Services. That's the Land Bank Authority. That is the Strategic Fund, which represents MEDC, along with MISHDA and Rural Development. So just wanted to make sure you understood that. There are also 18 individuals that make up this membership, and these are individuals from various industries, some housing industries, and some that directly connect to housing in some way. And it also includes, as part of this 18, 2 people with lived experience. As part of this effort, we had our first partnership meeting on April the 25th. And part of that meeting focused on the role of the partnership, talking about the role of the Regional Housing Partnership and the LEAD, along with conversations around establishing an Equity Advisory Committee. So just wanted to mention, as part of the statewide housing plan, there is a call for the creation of an Equity Advisory Committee that would provide recommendations on how to address inequities related to housing. And so there is steps being taken to establish that committee. So if you have individuals that you would like to recommend to serve on that committee, we hope to have something to you in the near future, application process in which individuals can submit interest or be nominated. So I hope to share more in the coming weeks. Next slide. So this is the structure. We have identified 15 areas, 15 regions to lead this effort. This structure is similar to the Regional Prosperity Initiative. The difference is that you will see that the UP is broken up into 3 regions. And also you'll see that Macomb, Oakland counties are pulled out, and Detroit is its own region as well. And so this decision was made to recognize the demographic, geographic, just a number of factors to really make sure that we are being proactive in identifying the needs of these communities and making sure that we have strategic strategies based on geography. One thing I wanted to say about this slide is that, as you know, there are leads, co-leads. We do have one tri-lead, and also a quad lead. So they're, based on what the needs of the community are and how organizations came together, configuration around how we're going to address Michigan's housing challenges regionally may vary. And so we're excited about all these unique partnerships. Next slide. So this is just to highlight the goals of the Regional Housing Partnership. We are bringing this partnership together to address the housing needs across the state. We want to make sure that these strategies align with regional and local efforts that are already taking place, and along with building on existing networks where appropriate. So we're not trying to recreate the wheel. We're just trying to make sure that we provide the support necessary to address housing challenges and make sure that what we've identified as part of that statewide housing plan effort around addressing housing challenges is implemented. And so this is the approach that we think makes the most sense. But again, as we go through this process, we'll need to make adjustments where appropriate. So the call of the Regional Housing Partnership is to develop action plans. And the goal is for those action plans to align with the goals within the statewide housing plan. Now, your region may have additional goals, and you can surely mention those and additional strategies as well. But we also want to make sure that we address the goals that are identified in the statewide housing plan. The Regional Housing Partnership is also working together to come together to create a housing ecosystem. And that means identifying all the key components that's needed within your community to not just address housing, but to also help individuals have a quality life. So we want to make sure that those important factors in regards to partners, whether it's working with health departments, or it's working with workforce development, or working with contractors and developers, that's part of the ecosystem, education institutions, to really make a community vibrant. Next slide. So as part of this Regional Housing Partnership, of course, as I mentioned before, we want to recognize and understand what are the barriers within your community that's impacting the ability to address affordable housing needs, attainable housing needs. We also want to make sure that it's an inclusive and collaborative process so that voices are heard from those that may often go unheard. And then we want to make sure that as part of that process that they are involved in not only identifying what the issues are, but also coming up with strategies to address them. So as part of this effort, we're looking for action plans to be created by August 31st. And that regional meetings will take place to really understand what are those priorities for the region. And then after those action plans are developed, a strategy put in place for implementing those action plans. So quarterly meetings, or monthly meetings, what makes the most sense for your region to take place to really put those plans into action. So as the Regional Housing Partnership structure, you must have an inclusive and collaborative process. Surely this is just a small list of those partners that should be coming together to talk about the housing needs and strategies to address those needs. As you know, there are leads and co-leads and tri-leads and quad lead. So, as part of that effort, we will need you to just identify one organization that's going to serve as a fiduciary. And as you start to work within community, you may design your approach uniquely in regards to how you engage community, especially if you have a large target area. And how you proceed in that effort is fine, but there will only be the Regional Housing Partnership leads identified that we've acknowledged and approved leading this effort. So you have those organizations leading the effort, but how you organize to work within the region to gather information is up to you. So look forward to more discussion around that. Next slide. So regional housing partnership meetings. I just wanted to highlight this because this was a number of comments I've received over the last couple of weeks from community partners, just wanting to make sure that they are engaged in the process. So as you're planning to do inclusive meetings, I just want to highlight whether or not you need to have translation services for limited English proficiency or issues. So just want to make sure that you think about that when you're creating your materials and when you're organizing your meetings. Accessibility support services. Do you need to have language interpreters? Of course, making sure you have barrier-free locations, but also accessibility around technology. There's a lot of conversations about communities with limited access to the internet. And so as you're planning, whether it's virtual meetings or in-person meetings, that you take that into consideration. The other thing that I wanted to mention too is as you're preparing your materials, we want to make sure that it is we want to make sure it's accessible. And so there are a number of steps that you can do to ensure that. So there's various software checks that you can do as you're preparing materials to be accessible and as you're posting information on your website. And so we surely can provide you support as needed. Just let us know, but it's important that we do everything we can to make this process accessible to the public and our partners. Next slide. So the Regional Housing Partnership effort, as Amy mentioned, we're looking at an initial grant of $175,000. That will be $100,000 for the first year and then $75,000 for the second year for action planning and coordination. We are hoping and working toward having this grant effective starting June 1st of 2023, and it will go through May 31st of 2025 if all conditions are met. So, if expectations are met regarding the first year, then you would have access to that $75,000 for the second year. As we mentioned before, we are hoping to have action plans by August 31st, and the time frame of the plan would be September 1 of 2023. So as you're doing your action planning, we're looking at a 4-year time frame. So we would be looking for you to be thinking about what can you do over a 4-year time frame, looking to start September 1st through August 31st of 2027. And as I mentioned before, as you start to organize how you engage the region and how you work toward implementing these plans, virtual meetings may take place, and along with other trainings and things of that nature to make sure you have the resources that you need. We would be looking for you to submit quarterly progress reports 30 days after the end of each quarter. Next slide. So just an update. So there are 15 regional housing partnerships identified since the kickoff meeting. We've had a little bit over 1,200 attendees when you add all those meetings together. On average, around 84 individuals attended the meetings. We will make sure that you receive notification, the information regarding who attended those meetings before the end of the week. We have sent out notifications to all the registrants on who has been identified as their regional leads. And we have also collected information in regards to what happened at those regional meetings in regards to their feedback, and that information will also be shared with you before the end of this week. Now we'll turn things over to Odessa, and she'll talk a little bit about how you can access those grant dollars to begin action planning and coordination, or coordination and action planning.
Thank you so much. Welcome again, everyone. So I'm going to talk about how to access that $175,000 in funding that was mentioned a couple times earlier. We definitely want to make sure that, you know, this goes as smoothly as possible, that this is as smooth of a process as possible. So a lot of the Housing Development Fund application will be filled out by OEE MSHDA staff using those regional housing partnership applications that was submitted by each regional housing partnership leads. Now, the HDF application will then be emailed to each RHP lead to fill out additional information. And that additional information may include things like primary contact information, like who will be that point person we would need to contact, the identified authorized signatory. And as mentioned before, that authorized signatory will need to be the fiduciary, and any other additional information necessary to complete the application. Now, the HDF application information will be used to help detail the grant agreement's Exhibit A and the budget. Now, the Exhibit A is the part of the grant agreement that really identifies what those objectives are that will need to be completed under the grant. Next slide, please. So again, the anticipated grant term, we're really working towards June 1st, 2023 through May 31st, 2025. And the grant agreement will be emailed to each of the RHP leads, and we will need to have that signed by their authorized signatory, which again will be that fiduciary. And in order to execute the grant agreement, it will need to be signed by MSHDA's authorized signatory and RHP lead's authorized signatory. If an RHP lead, you know, if an RHP has co-leads or multiple leads, the grant agreement will only need to be signed by one of the leads' authorized signatory, which is the fiduciary. And that fiduciary is really going to be responsible for making sure the information that I'm going to share in the next few slides is submitted and taken care of, and all that information is submitted to MSHDA. Now, the quarterly progress reports, which is what we call QPRs, will need to be emailed to MSHDA OEE staff each calendar quarter, 30 days after the end of the calendar quarter. Now, more details and instructions will be included in the grant agreement, and it will be in accompanied documents that will be provided by MSHDA OEE staff. It'll include the MSHDA OEE staff contact information and other pertinent information you will need to know. Next slide, please. Now, the RHP grantees will be responsible for reporting quarterly progress and meeting the objectives that are identified in the grant agreement. Those quarterly progress reports, or what we call QPRs, are due again by the end of each calendar quarter. And once the RHP grantee has completed their objectives as outlined in the grant agreement, they will need to prepare and submit a final report and any deliverables that are identified to MSHDA OEE staff, person or persons. And again, you'll get more information regarding who that contact person will be. Next slide, please. All right, QPRs. So the purpose of the QPRs are to document the progress of the RHP action plan. And it will be an online document that MSHDA will, get data from to build a statewide aggregate data report. And that content will include tracking the outcomes of the key performance indicators, or KPIs, what we like to call it, named in the HPR action plan. And it will include qualitative or quantitative data. Now, just a reminder, quantitative data is data represented numerically, which could include anything that can be counted, measured, or given a numerical value. And that qualitative data describes qualities or characteristics. So it's collected using questionnaires, interviews, or observations. And you might see it a lot in narrative form. So for example, it could be notes taken during a focus group on housing in a region, or responses from an open-ended questionnaire, just to give you some ideas on that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the final report that we talked about earlier, we just need you to give us a detailed description of all completed outcomes, identify any outcomes not completed, and any unanticipated hurdles that may have limited the ability for you to complete the grant to the extent outlined in the grant agreement. We would like hard or electronic copies of all products that were developed. Now, we do prefer, in this new world that we're living in, that you do submit electronic copies if possible. And it should include, but not limited to, data, studies, plans, or other products that resulted wholly or in part from the grant funding. And also high-resolution photos of any community meetings and other pertinent events. We would really like to see the engagement that's occurring all across these different regions. And photos is usually one of those nice ways to depict that. So if you could provide photos, that would be really, really great. So thank you, everyone, and wanted to know if there are any questions before we move on.
Yes, Odessa, this is Karen.
Yes.
So this one's to Amy. I know that Amy mentioned this at the beginning, but Travis has asked if the the grant agreement ends on May 31st of 25, but plans go through the end of August of 27. Will there be a funding for that additional time frame of implementation?
Yeah, we hope so. Yes. We're going to see how it goes, and if everything is going well, we plan on trying to continue to support the planning and implementation of the plan. But great question.
Thank you. And Lenny asked if the QP, and this is to Odessa, are the QPRs a fillable form, or what kind of format is it?
The QPRs will actually give you maybe about 3 or 4 questions around that to just really ask you what it is, has occurred so far in the grant agreement. Is there anything you want to mention to us, or are there any types of things that you want to mention to us that maybe had stopped you from completing some objectives in that grant agreement? But that will be a part of those accompanied documents that I referred to earlier as a part of the grant agreement. So it won't really be a fillable form, but you can submit that as a Word document or a PDF document through email.
Okay.
And
then she,
and this
I'm
is
sorry.
Tiffany.
Go.
I just wanted to provide some additional follow-up. Dave Allen and I are working on the QPR, trying to figure out how to connect it to the action plan and trying to do it in such a way where as you're collecting information, as we're collecting information across the regions, that information can be pulled together so that we can see, what the results are. Around production and things of that nature. So at the time that you will receive a QPR, our hope is that it will be in a format where you can just fill in the form, and that it'll be electronic in some way. So we're working on that now.
Thank you, because I just wanted to make sure that you get the data that you want and not the stuff that you're not looking for. Because that will help direct the conversation if we know exactly what you're looking for in these reports. Also, is there going to be like a login or something, or am I just submitting it via email, like the following documentation, like meeting minutes and things like that? Any type of notes?
Yeah, we're working to figure out if we need to create some type of portal or something like that, so we can use for not only receiving information from the regions, but also if there's a way that the regions can communicate with each other, right? So we're trying to figure out a system where we can clearly get information to you in a timely fashion, a location where you can go to retrieve information and also to update and provide information to us. So we're working through that and hope to have a response back in, hopefully within the next 30 days of our approach to having a more streamlined process for communication and reporting.
and Sheila asked if how soon the grant agreements will be sent out.
We want to make sure those are sent out no later than next week. So please anticipate an email going out to the RHP leads next week.
One additional question about the grants. Are they reimbursable grants? Do I have to submit, any type of documentation? Or if I submit this grant agreement, or you put in $100,000 in my account? Like how are we facilitating this?
That is a really good question. We are trying to work to make sure that, it's as easy as possible for you to access the funds. So at the minimum, we want to make sure that we are getting those quarterly progress reports from you. At first, we used to accept those quarterly progress reports as a Word document. So as you can see, things are developing more rapidly than usual. So thank you, Tiffany, for giving us some more information on some things that are being developed, as it will be a fillable form. So with that being said, we're hoping that we are able to make sure that you are, able to get advances, you're able to access this funding as smoothly as possible. So there will be more details regarding that underway.
you need to send out a budget narrative for the funding or to you, Odessa, as part of the QRP?
Yep, actually, that will be a part of the HDF application that will be sent out to you all. It will have a proposed budget located in there, so we will use that to put into the grant agreement as the budget. Are there any more questions? All righty. Well, without further ado, I will pass it on to MSU Extension. Thank you.
Great, thanks. I'm going to share my screen to tell you a little bit about what MSU Extension's role will be in this process. Just a second here. Okay, great. So again, I'm Lindsay Gardner. I'm a facilitator and statewide specialist in leadership and community engagement. You might remember us from the earlier regional meetings. I like to say we're the fun people. We come with the sticky notes and the markers and kind of make the process enjoyable and meaningful, and hopefully come up with some solid action plans for you all. So we're here to help support through our facilitation services. This is something that your region may decide to engage with us to help you get started or not, depending on your capacity and if you would find this helpful to you. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about that process here today. So based on the work that needs to be done and really on this regional scale for a pretty complex issue, we've designed a facilitated process that follows more of a structured approach called collective impact. So our hope is to help guide you as regional leads in using this model if you'd find it helpful for you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about collective impact and then about what our process specifically can look like. So collective impact sometimes gets confused as just a synonym for collaboration, but it's actually a really structured method where cross-sector leaders like yourselves come together and they really strategically organize different relevant groups of people to accomplish a population-wide outcome. This is the technical definition of collective impact in the research. It's also pretty similar to what you've already been tasked to do as a region by bringing a lot of different people together for a pretty broad and complex issue. So why we chose this model and this approach for our process that we can help facilitate with you. You heard earlier, I think Tiffany was sharing that the RHP must be a collaboration of a lot of different partners. You know, you've got local units of government, nonprofits, developers, land banks, lenders, businesses, higher education, philanthropy, residents, people with lived experience. So we've got a lot of different people to consider in this process. We've got to engage a lot of different groups and coordinate work that's being done. And so we believe this model that we can facilitate with you can help you do that effectively. So collective impact, it's an evidence-based framework. Also, as Tiffany and Amy said earlier, instead of reinventing the wheel, we wanted to share with you a model that has a track record of success for true impact. We just want to be clear that as lead agencies, you didn't sign up to create an entire new initiative all by yourselves. You've really been tasked with being the hub or connecting and coordinating, strengthening existing efforts, filling in gaps. And with collective impact, you do that. You kind of go where the energy is, you build on the strengths that are already in place. And it's a lot about working together, but working together smarter. I'm going to pop up a little diagram that kind of demonstrates this, but rather than kind of working against one another or working apart or even necessarily working alongside, in the model of collective impact, you're working to build on one another to have greater regional impact. So in the collective impact model, there's something called working groups, which I'll share more about in a second, but they're the ones that put the strategies that you come up with into action. So there's smaller groups that focus really on implementation. So it's really a team effort of all of the different players doing each their own part towards these greater priorities. The collective impact model, it really emphasized the importance of shared metrics. We were talking about the KPIs earlier, towards a common goal. So having a clear picture of the work that's happening can help improve for you continuous learning and improving to really reach the people that you need to reach and have the outcomes that you want to have. So this model, it's a lot about cross-sector alignment, and that has shown to have greater systemic change, which is what we're all here for. We're here for a successful housing ecosystem in every single region. And so we want to facilitate and support you in getting started in a way that's going to set you up for success. So there are 5 core components or basic tenets of collective impact, which when they work together, it's when it makes it most effective. So I'm going to walk through these 5 with you real quick. First, there's a common agenda. And so this includes like a vision and goals so that everybody who's involved, all those different partners that I was just mentioning, they all know kind of where we're headed and what's driving us. So in our case, we have the state housing plan, which is fabulous as our guide and our starting place to give us that common agenda that we're all working towards. And then in the middle, you'll see what is often called backbone support in a collective impact initiative, or in our case, it's a lead agency who is funded to provide coordination and oversight. Well, that sounds a lot like you all, doesn't it? So a group that can really help with given a little bit of funding and support, make this happen. But like I said, you're not making everything happen. Where the magic really comes in is in the next piece, which is mutually reinforcing activities. And so in this case, these are those smaller working groups that I mentioned. And these groups come together and they choose high leverage actions that they can pursue together that not one organization would be able to do alone. So these are those strategies that we were talking about. So having your region choose some strategies that can really demonstrate the power of working collectively and have some wins for your region. You know, there's evidence of tangible progress. Maybe there's some new collaborations that are formed. Maybe you're finding what's working in one place of your region can be built upon at a larger scale. So really looking at these strategies and making sure that they're reinforcing one another across your whole region. Then in collective impact, we use shared measurement to monitor progress, how things are going, and celebrate successes. And you just heard from Tiffany and Odessa about the KPIs and the data sharing in your action plan to be able to say, hey, here's how it's going. And so everyone in your region who's involved can be seeing the outcomes and the success. So the last piece, to make this all function properly, there has to be clear and continuous communication between everyone involved. So all of the partners, all of the people involved in working groups, there needs to be communication kind of up and down and back and forth. So everyone's clear and feeling compelled to be a part of this larger initiative. So these are just the basic tenets of all collective impact initiatives. As you see, this is kind of similar to the work that we're already doing with the state housing plan, the lead agencies, the strategies, the KPIs, and then these communication plans that we've been talking about. So you might be wondering, what would this actually look like? What would this look like in practice? So through our process, we'd like to help you if you are interested to structure towards this collective impact. So what this often looks like in collective impact is that you as the lead agency or tri or quad lead agencies I was just learning about are serving as that backbone, and you're doing the important work of coordinating all of these other partners. So you will connect people through and ensure that there's full inclusivity. You're monitoring progress, you're checking in on that common agenda, or in our case, we're calling it the action plan. How are we doing? You're kind of overseeing what's going on. And then you chair, or your quad or tri are chairing the steering committee and then supporting the work groups. So like, wait, what steering committee? So what we would like to propose is helping you come up with kind of a steering committee, which would be a group of committed higher level cross-sector leaders that would come together and help you provide some strategic direction and really help you champion the effort in the region. And the steering committee can be the hub between all these other agencies. The steering committee also looks at the shared data as a whole and ensures that there's alignment with all the work that's going on. So again, providing that oversight and support and looking at it from the bigger picture. And then finally, there's some little working groups, as I've mentioned, that spring off the steering committee. And they're typically formed around specific elements of the common agenda, or in our case, it will likely be the state housing plan priorities. And these groups focus on these strategies and focus on the action plan that we're developing. So these working groups would meet regularly. They might swap ideas, what's working, share data. They might come with challenges that they're facing or opportunities to work together. And they see how they fit into the larger picture of the initiative, but also know, here's my own unique differentiated work that I'm doing, but how it fits in so we're building on one another. So these working groups kind of turn these high-level plans, the strategies, the priorities, into specific projects and outcomes, making the work happen. So this model that I just went through kind of provides a structure and support so that you're able to really sustain the engagement of a broad range of community groups and have impact at a regional scale. So it's, as I mentioned, it's a complex issue and you're talking about a lot of different partners. And so you kind of need some scaffolding to be able to engage so many different people in a meaningful way so that they're really building on one another. So to paint the picture a little bit more, this is, and it's okay if you can't read all the little words on there. It's just a mock-up of what Region S, there's no Region S, but Region Spartyville might look like. It's a fictitious region. So just to kind of walk you through that, if there's a backbone agency, maybe that's the Go Green Housing Development Corp. That group has perhaps their executive directors kind of chairing this little steering committee. On that steering committee, there's maybe 4 or 5 other agencies that are coming together regularly. You know, the Spartan Land Bank Authority, for example. I made these up. I hope these aren't actual real agencies in real life. So correct me if so, but fictitious. And each of the people on the steering committee are then also checking in with a working group. So the Spartan Land Bank Authority that, again, I've made up here, is also co-chairing the home ownership working group and checking in with them. So there's communication up and down between the people that are implementing these strategies to the steering committee back to you as the backbone. So you're able to collect the data that you need, find out what's going on, and be supporting each way. So that's just to paint the picture. We are fully aware that this needs to be pretty open and flexible because every region is going to look a lot different. We just wanted to mock one up of what generally it could be. But again, if you've got quad leads, that already maybe adds a bigger steering committee, which is fantastic. And so we would work with you to kind of customize this for what's going to work in your region. So our team of trained facilitators are located all across the state. You met a couple of us in your region for the last 2 meetings that you've had. Well, the first public meeting that we had, and then the last facilitated process that we did. And so we are able, if you'd like to engage us, to come out and facilitate this process with you to help you get structured, to help you get started. So let me tell you what those 2 meetings might look like. In our first meeting, if you choose to engage with us, we'd come out and we'd review all of the relevant partners that are in your region at this first meeting and really discuss engagement. This activity that we would do with you is sometimes called a stakeholder analysis. So looking at all of the relevant organizations and groups and making sure that it's comprehensive and inclusive. And then we would work with you and the people that are at that first meeting to determine the regional priorities that make sense for you and to help form some working groups around those couple that you choose. Then from there, we would help those working groups identify a chair or co-chairs that can serve on the steering committee and communicate back and forth. So helping the working group select those chairs. And then before leaving that first meeting, we really want this diverse group of agencies and individuals to feel like they have a really clear sense of their role in this too. So it's not, again, all on you, but that they're a part of this as well. And that they feel really inspired to collectively work together to have this widespread impact. So we want to take time at the end of that first meeting to talk about communication going forward in your region and what that could look like and how to support you in doing that so that people keep coming back meeting after meeting. So doing a strong kickoff so people are clear when they leave and really feel inspired in that way and know how you're going to reach out to them to come back for meeting number 2. So then we are also open to coming back for a second meeting once you have your working groups established to kind of help you get started. So in our second meeting, we would facilitate for these working groups and kind of task them with reviewing the state housing plan again and selecting the goals for your region. And then we would help the working groups craft really region-specific strategies. And so we'd work with them, what we call the SMARTY method. It's kind of like the next thing of SMART goals, but it includes making sure that what your strategies are, they're super clear about. It's measurable, it's actionable, it's timely. It's also inclusive and equitable. So really thinking about the unique needs of your region and making sure that the strategies you've chosen make sense and that they're committed to them in implementation. So then the work groups would focus on developing that shared commitment for the strategies that you all have chosen, and they're ready to get to work and go out and do their thing and then come back at the next meeting. So we would, if time, initiate discussions about opportunities for shared measurement, collaboration, so that these working groups say, okay, this is how this is going to go, and they know what they can expect in meetings going forward. Now we can do our meetings virtual or in person. We've built this out in our collaborative whiteboard called Miro. We demonstrated that at the last meeting, so we can kind of compile this, but we can move things around. It's really flexible in that way, so we can use our sticky notes to say, here's our priorities we're considering and our goals. Here's the strategies we've developed, the lead who's doing it. This is what we have built out in our facilitated process. Mirrors the template that you'll need to do for MSHDA. So it'll be really easy to transfer what your community partners come up with right to the required forms for MSHDA, so that these are distinctly aligned there. So I hope I've made a good pitch for it. We'd love to work with you. We have a fabulous team all across the state. You've met some of us, but we'd certainly be honored to work with you, but we know some of you have strong capacity as well. So if you're just eager to sign up and want to know how, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Brad, who's on the call, to tell you a little bit about how you can get in touch with us if you decide to move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Nice job laying out our proposed model here. And I'm going to pop in the chat a facilitation request form. So what we would ask you to do is, if you're interested in this, go to that link, or you can shoot the QR code on the screen. This can go out in a follow-up email. I think Tiffany or Odessa mentioned a follow-up email, and so we can include this in a follow-up email. And the form just asks for information about the lead agency or co-leads, a little bit about what other work has been done since the kickoff meetings a month or so ago, and some information about your desired timeline. We know August 31st is going to come quick, but you all have your own work other than housing for many of these agencies represented here. You're doing other things. And so does this work for you to start in June, maybe the second half of July, or maybe early August? And so what we would do is take that information through this central request and work with our team of educators around the state to find mutual time where we can engage with you and your partners. Now, to be clear, meeting planning and coordination would largely be on each of the lead agencies. For the kickoff meetings, that was done centrally, but we're going to rely on you and your staff to help find a good space for both meeting 1 and meeting 2, and make sure that it's accessible and meets some basic requirements. And we hope to then work in tandem with CEDM to get communication out about those regional meetings. Meeting 1 with kind of that core group to build working groups and the steering committee, and then meeting 2 where we're reaching out to a broader, more diverse group to fill those working groups, select goals, and get started on getting things done. So in partnership with CEDM, your staff, that's where some of the facility planning and logistics would be based. And then our team, I see a question in the chat about, is there a chance to talk with us ahead of time? Absolutely. Based on the detail that you provide in the intake form, we will certainly be setting up then some probably Zoom-based conversations with the leads or the co-leads to talk about nuances. You maybe have some concerns you want to share with us before we come into the meeting, and some things that we want to be sure that we address. And so, yes, we would have some focused meetings before we kick off with that meeting 1 and meeting 2. But again, to be clear, we believe in this model and this process, but you might have some other directions that you think that your region needs to head in. And MIST is not requiring working with Extension. I think MIST is interested in knowing that you've got a stable, legitimate process that's going to help you achieve the goals for the region and in the SHP. But we are offering this model as an option, and I think that it will do a good job of meeting those objectives, of meeting that common agenda, as we've heard here. So I think that's all I would like to say. Thanks to the MISTA team, thanks to CEDM on the collaborative work here, and we're excited to help all of you out in improving the state of housing in our great state of Michigan.
We have a question. Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, I think this is a question for Lindsay. Just a couple of clarifying things based on what you said. You mentioned regional priorities. Do those have to specifically mirror the 8 priority areas in the state housing plan?
So we'll be using those in our process as a starting place, because it is important that what's coming up in the regions is aligned with the state housing plan itself. And we also know that there's some customization and flexibility in the process as well. So we are open to working with you on if it makes sense for the working groups to be called something else, that maybe do 2 priorities at once or 2 goals at once. But we will be using the state housing plan as our launching pad for all conversations to say, well, what will this look like for us? And to make sure that we're in alignment with that, and knowing that there will be flexibility. So I hope that answers your question. And again, we're happy to work with you individually for your specific needs.
Yeah, no, thanks. That clarifies that. And then I had a second question, which I think maybe dovetails with what Lenny just put in the chat. Our tri-leads have already talked a little bit about public engagement and what that looks like. So I guess my question is the expectation that this regional effort is doing direct and intentional public engagement as part of this process, or are we relying on the different stakeholders who are part of, whether it's a steering committee or working group or whatever, to know their constituents inside and outside so they can kind of represent those populations? Just thinking through all the different moving parts and timeline and that sort of thing.
Exactly, Travis, because we have 3 months to put together a housing plan, because I don't want to put together a housing plan that's not going to be acceptable by the community that we're trying to serve. Because if one agency says we need to focus on low income housing and the community says, no, we want workforce or we want senior housing, that's completely 2 different things, because they're not in the room to help plan this.
So I think it's probably a both and, with the help of MISTA and CEDAM in the overall communication plan. We hope our process will be, it's intentionally going to take you through a process where we try to identify those local priorities and make sure that we have all those different facets represented, even if they haven't been part of the conversation so far, from the kickoff meeting or even the meeting in the fall where MISTA was on the roadshow. So I think extension facilitating specific community engagement is outside the scope of this work. We're open to talking about that in other corners of the state. But I think for what we've been charged with doing, we're going to take you through a process that hopefully it will be really intentional about making sure we have the right people participating, given the representation of groups in your community, and at the right place in the organizational structure, as Lindsay talked about, the steering committee, the working groups, the backbone or lead agency. What's the right place for a different agency or individual to plug in to help ensure this all goes smooth?
And if I could just pipe in for 1 second, because I feel a little bit of the stress there. And I think there's a couple of places where you can do broader community engagement. Those working groups could also do their own engagement around their individual issues and get more voices to the table in that way as well. And then also, let's also just remember, our plan isn't going to be perfect. No plan is perfect, and it doesn't have to be stagnant. Right? So like, you're going to put a plan in place with the best community engagement and input that you possibly can, and trying to build a coalition. But let's say 6 months down the line, you get some new information and you have to adjust your plan. We're okay with you adjusting your plan. We don't know what's going to happen in 6 months, 9 months, a year, and things in your region may change drastically, and you might have to pivot, and that's going to be okay.
Lenny has his hand up. Go ahead, Lenny.
Yeah, that was kind of going to what my question was going to be, because I have 11 counties, and all I know is 2 so far that has done a housing needs assessment. And many of these communities need this, and I know they're not going to be able to get this off the ground in the few months that we have. So my plan would kind of be like an overview, a high level overview, because it's not granular, because we don't have, I would be pulling the data that you guys provided in the statewide housing plan to kind of populate what some of the goals are. But I'm glad you said that we could change it, as we are getting more granular, as we're getting these reports to kind of get to those benchmarks. And then my other question, the funds that we get could be used to supplement those areas for those particular initiatives. Let's say, for example, I'm using one of my counties. So say like Sheboygan County needs assistance, with a needs assessment, and they can't, the needs assessment costs $5,000. They can only bring $3,000 to the table. Can $2,000 of the RHP money, that we got, could that be used to create or help supplement that needs assessment? All right, I'll shut up now.
No, please, because you're asking questions that probably a lot of other people have as well. So no worries about asking too many questions. I think we're going to just play it by ear, but if your region determines it needs more capacity, we're going to try to be there, right? So we're going to try to allocate a certain amount of resources to each region, kind of based on data, right? Population and need, which Dave Allen will help us. But I don't want to be prescriptive necessarily on how you use that, right? So if you need to use some of your funds for capacity building and more studies, you'll be able to use that. If there's people who want to use all of it towards housing subsidy, and have projects ready to go, I think they'll be able to use more of their funds for that. So we're going to try to meet you where you are, where we can.
Well, thanks, Amy, Tiffany. I think if there are no more questions for us, we will pass the mic on to Luke, I suppose.
I think it's Dave Allen. He is next to talk a little bit about to show the action planning template.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, actually, I must thank MSU a lot for what they covered. This it covers a lot of the stuff that that I was planning on kind of going over. So I can just breeze over that stuff because you guys have already heard it. Most of the things that I want to kind of discuss today revolve around two tools for the most part. One of them actually gets to a little bit about what Lenny was talking about in terms of data and data needs and assessments. And the other is the actual action planning template itself. First off, there was some data that was given out at the first meeting, a rather large pile of paper that talked a little bit about housing market conditions in very local regions within each partnership. That could certainly be used as kind of like a precursor to some other studies, maybe something to get the process started and get some numbers kind of on the ground so that we can start talking about maybe plans from there. The paper version is fine. The PDF is a little more navigable. The maps on the pages, for example, have numbers in them to identify them. You just click on that number, it'll open up the data sheet that it responds to. The other thing about that PDF is at the end of it, it has a large number of housing policy tools that were collected by the Local Housing Solutions website. That website is a product of a collaboration between a lot of philanthropy, the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Ford Foundation, a few others, and it's managed by the Furman Center for Real Estate and Urban Policy at the New York University. So that has a rather robust list. They kind of break out those policies by whether you have kind of a softish kind of a market or a strong market. And when you click on the name of that policy, it'll open up that page on that website, so you can kind of read about what that policy is and who's using it and what problem it was created to kind of solve. Again, hopefully get the creative juices flowing and maybe another source of some ideas for some of this planning process. I would also like to say too that if you as leads need data support or have questions about need in various parts of your partnership, you can certainly call MSHDA. That's part of my job is to support the partnerships through that data analysis and outreach. So if you need something, definitely give me a call. We can certainly talk about it if we can handle it or if we may know someone who could for you. In any case, so that's the data part of it. Just to note that there are some things that exist, but it's definitely call me or somebody get a hold of me to discuss some of those things a little further. So the action template is next. Again, thanks to MSU for kind of laying out what this plan is going to be looking like. The tool is meant to be easy to use, right? Because the hard work is always trying to figure out how to populate the tool, right? We wanted to make the tool as easy to kind of use as possible. It's an Excel spreadsheet, which identifies the goals and strategies that the partnership chooses to work on. Let's see, it's expected that the RHP will choose between 3 and 5 goals. You don't have to do all of them. Just a small group that you think that you really need and can make really good progress on. And you can select strategies tied to them, either from the given list from the SHIP itself, or others that you may be working on that didn't make that list to begin with. You can also work on multiple strategies at once as well, all depending on your capacity and your needs locally. The workbook itself includes instructions on the first page, the action template itself on the second, and a worked example of goal 1 on the last. So let's actually, if I can share my screen, I'd like to show everybody kind of how that looks. Tell me when you can see it.
You can see it.
Yay. Okay. So again, this is the first page. Directions are on the left. A lot of it talks about KPIs. That's a major function of this template. We talked about that being kind of a shared measurement to demonstrate progress on the goals and the strategies that you're working on. The other half of this page talks about the statewide housing goal. Back in September 2021, the Whitmer administration announced a goal of 75,000 new or rehabbed units to be produced in Michigan by the end of fiscal year 2026. The data sheets that I handed out have some information on that in terms of the share of that 75,000 goal that each partnership could look to. But that was just basically, taking a look at some statistics around the state and making best guesses. It didn't have a lot to do with the local contexts that you all know about, intimately from your work in housing in your various partnerships. So we're asking in this box to have you say how much of a share of that 75,000 you could reasonably produce, given what you know about the housing contexts in your area. This again is kind of something to kind of get people started to think about some of the work maybe ahead. After that introductory page, you have the action template itself, and again, this is just a very plain Excel spreadsheet. You'll note columns here, labeled yes or no. Those would denote which strategies and goals you're kind of working on. If a partnership chooses to work on the first one, goal 1.1 and strategy 1.1a under that, you would press just enter an X in that spot, and that's it. That's all you need to do as far as that goes. Then you need to answer some questions about those shared measurements, those KPIs that you'll be coming up with. The KPIs, again, should be something that measures progress on the strategies that you're choosing to work on. So they have to be kind of described that way. You need to give on this template a baseline measurement for that KPI, so we know kind of where you're starting from and can gauge success and improvement after that. The date that benchmark refers to. You should also set goals for that KPI. In a year, we expect to be this far along, or in a year, we're constructing this many units of this type of housing, or in a year, we're completing this study that'll show us kind of what the priorities in a particular area should be. Something geared towards that, like the results and that time frame along with it. You also have to list the ownership of the KPI, who is charged with collecting that data on a regular basis, where that data is coming from. In some ways, it's highly tied to what the KPI is going to be. If you're talking about something like production, a good place to look at that might be building permits. So you'd have to know kind of where building permits are issued in the partnerships that you're taking a look at, in the areas in the partnership, rather, that you're taking a look at, and then have somebody go in and actually ask the question, how many building permits did you have? So that there's a little bit of thinking that kind of goes on there, but it's kind of an important thing to get a good idea of, so that you can have some regularity of reporting. You kind of know who to talk to, and they know what they're supposed to do on that regular basis. That regular basis is the collection cadence for that data. We assume that it's generally going to be quarterly. A lot of the reporting that is necessary is on a quarterly basis. I can see some scenarios, however, depending on the KPI that you choose, that maybe quarterly doesn't make as much sense as perhaps an annual look. It kind of depends on, again, what you're trying to do. We're assuming that it might default to quarterly, but we're certainly open to some other things. There's also the opportunity to maybe do it on an event-based kind of a thing, where you're making a study, right? There's a study that's supposed to be going on to assess needs in a county in your partnership. The KPI might be the completion of that study, and once you meet that, you've made that progress. There are a number of ways to kind of do that. It's good to pick the way that makes the most sense for what you want to do, what your capacities are, and kind of what kind of progress you're planning on showing. I've also created, again, this is a completely fictional mocked up version, but it shows kind of what one of these things filled out might look like. So this is a pretend partnership that's working on the first priority, equity and racial justice. You'll note on the left-hand side of the screen, they've X'd some rows in the yes column. They've also declined to work on some others. This one here, that denotes a strategy that wasn't in the original list from the SHIP. Again, that's absolutely fine. And we're hoping that local contexts and local partnerships might come up with things on their own. that meet their local needs the best. All we ask is that you put them down, even if they don't, if not in the list originally, put them down. You mark them in red so that we know that they're kind of new. That's basically it for that. You'll note that for all the ones that this group has chosen to work on, they've also chosen KPIs. They've given the KPI baseline and the date. Well, if I had more information on how this fictional partnership worked, I would have put in regular names. But that's basically, who in the partnership is going to provide that data on that regular basis. Noting the goal, the study that for this new thing about collecting local impediments to increasing housing supply targeted to immigrants and refugees. They say that the study is going to be complete by Q2 in 2024, and the cadence for collection for that would be, well, if my computer was actually saying that would have been just event-based based on that completion of that study. So again, it's the template's meant to be easy to fill out. Again, if you have different strategies that don't show up on the list, certainly just feel free to insert them. Just note that they're new, hopefully by using that red bolded text. You basically just kind of, as you're going through the process of figuring out what you want to do, you'd go through this whole list of goal strategies, picking out the ones you want to work on, and filling out the template like this. With that, I think I will quit sharing. The next thing to speak of a little bit is that reporting schedule, and we've talked about that a lot. August 31st is the important day for this action planning template. That's when it's due. The quarterly reporting is going to be set up so that you have a quarter's worth of activity, and a month later you report on it. That the tool that we're going to be using for that is still in development, but we'll get that out as soon as we can, so folks can kind of see that and start to work with that as well. And I think with that, that's all I had to say. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that might have popped up since I was talking.
I haven't seen any questions yet. This is Karen. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat or raise your hand. I did want to go back to a couple questions. So one was from Nicole about, Amy, your comments about the funding. And this might be to Tiffany or Odessa. How is funding limited in terms of eligible activities, right? As in, can it be used to hire a contractor for a study, hire staff, paying for data, et cetera?
So if I can just ask for clarification, is that part of the $175,000 grant you're getting for the implementation, or is this thinking forward about the additional funding that they might get to fund the activities of the plan?
And this kind of dovetails with another question. So let me throw this in there too, because Brooke is asking if the funds you're referring to are not the original allocation, but rather a part of the dollars allocated as part of the plan. So, there's a little maybe confusion.
Yeah. So I think if we think about it this way, the $100,000 that you're getting this year is to help you get the plan done. So if you need to hire other people besides MSU and CEDM, which we are paying for already, so that does not come out of your $100,000. But if you feel like you need to hire other people, that would come out of your $100,000. The other funding is for the implementation of the plan. Now, if in order to implement the plan, you need to hire consultants or other people, then you will be able to do those kinds of capacity building activities as part of the implementation of your plan. So I kind of think if you think about it as one, getting the plan in place, and two, being able to implement the plan.
I just wanted, before Lenny goes, can we just check with Nicole and Brooke if your questions got answered?
So just to clarify, when you say implementation, that's the year 2 75,000?
Nope.
Or are you saying other funding sources entirely with MSHDA?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you think the full 175 is for you guys to the first 100 get the plan in place and begin to oversee the communications and the data and the reporting and all of that. But then when we give you some additional funding for what's in your plan to help you get there, then that's additional funding. That won't necessarily be going through the lead agencies, right? It's going to really depend on what is in your plan. If is in your plan is single family rehab or home ownership rehab, we're going to identify what's the best agency to give that money to implement the single family home rehab, right? It's not going to all funnel through the lead agency. The only thing that's guaranteed to funnel through the lead agencies is the money to get the plan in place and to oversee the plan going forward.
And Brooke, did we answer your question?
That 100% answers my question. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Okay, and then the second part of Nicole's, before we get to you, Lenny, and some other questions in the chat. Nicole said, what's the role of the or what role are the RHPs expected to have with the statewide housing partnership marketing and communications plan task that's outlined in the call to action, if any? I mean,
well, I think, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, well, you're the boss. So we should defer to you.
No, I mean, I personally see that call to action is for your regional housing partnership plan and marketing and communicating what's happening in your regional housing plan. And then that information and what you guys are doing is all going to funnel up through the statewide housing plan partnership, right? And so you're not necessarily responsible for anything at the statewide housing partnership level, except for sharing your information. Did I get that right?
Well, I think we might be, there's a couple things going on with the communication plan and yet to be more fully discussed. But I do think that there will be some kind of information sharing down, like some kind of a template to assist. So stay tuned for that. But we're working to make sure that we're all connected. And then while I'm looking at other questions in the chat, Lenny, why don't you go ahead, and then Kirsten.
Thank you so much. So my question is about the additional funding. Okay, so then does this become a separate track within MSHDA as a difference than your, say, Housing and Community Development Fund? You know, because like we apply for the Housing Community Development Fund for your MSHDA investing into communities funds. And then within that had a subsection of rental rehabs that our community is very interested in to do that. So does this process now have a separate track now to where I say now Sheboygan, Alpena are looking for rental rehabs. Alcona County is looking for single family, housing development. And then I submit these requests to Tiffany and, Karen, and then they give me money and then
that's a great
we
question.
give it to community.
No, they don't give you money. We will give the money to whoever's actually doing the work. So let me just clear that. And the rest of it is not as clear of a answer. One, we're not going to stop all of our programs that we already have going, right? So you're going to have partners within your region who are already doing work, who are going to continue to apply directly to MSHDA for our outstanding programs, whether that's low-income housing tax credits, it's MSHDA Mod, the MSHDA MISH program that you mentioned too, Missy Middle, whatever those programs are that we have. Those programs are going to continue to exist, right? And people will get to continue to access those. But what we're going to try to do with some of our additional funding is not be so prescriptive about it having to be within a specific program. So if you have an activity that you want in your region that, like right now, there's not a clear homeowner rehab program, right? There's just not a clear one. But if that's a priority, then you're going to come to us with that as a priority, and we're going to then try to help fund that with entity that within your region who has the capacity to implement that program, right? So, and it's not like 100% clear right now because this is new and we've never done it before, and we're just going to try to figure it out as we go, and it might get a little bumpy. But what I don't want to do is have to be super prescriptive right now and then not be able to be responsive to what's in your regional housing plans.
And just wanted to add one more thing if I could, Amy. Sorry for interjecting. The Housing and Community Development Fund is different from the Housing Development Fund. So I want to just make sure I identify that. The Housing Community Development Fund was put in place to assist those that have been disproportionately impacted through the COVID-19 pandemic, and there's other, regulations with that. Now we're going to be using the Housing Development Fund to fund that $175,000 because going back to what Amy said, it's a lot less prescriptive for us. It's MSHDA money. It doesn't come with a lot of rules and regulations like HCDF does. And it's also was created as a part of our MSHDA Act. So just wanted to give you all the difference between HCDF and HDF. I'm sorry for all the acronyms, but
I really don't want you guys to worry about what fund we're pulling the money from. That should not be your concern at all. That's just our concern. You just need to tell us what we need to put the money out for, and we'll figure out which pot of money we're going to use at MSHDA that falls into the compliance of the funds that we have, right? So I don't want you to worry about the acronyms at all at this point.
Right. Thank you.
Kirsten?
So I think that actually answered a little bit of my question, but I was specifically, if these funds are flexible enough where we can do payments directly to people with lived experiences for like a stipend, if they are flexible enough for that, so we can get more of an engagement going, because that would help a lot.
So do you mean the 100,000 that you're getting for the planning?
Yeah.
Yep, those are flexible. As
Okay,
Odessa said,
perfect.
those you're good to go probably on that. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And this next question in the chat kind of relates to the budget. Does the accessibility translation support and internet access and checking for, internet access costs come from the 175, or will MSHDA cover those costs?
I'm not sure what that means, but from those costs, from the 175. If you don't have internet at your place and you have to purchase it or can't use a public location like a library or something, that's going to have to come from your funds. And maybe I'm misinterpreting that question, but.
Well, to Tiffany, for example, if more than one community needs some translation, for example, maybe is that what were you thinking that MSHDA would provide? MSHDA would assist with that since we already have a contract in place? I might be misspeaking.
I think if you have a request that you feel like you can't fund, you should talk to us and we'll see what we can do on our end. But for the most part, you're getting $100,000 to help get this plan going, and we would like for you to try to use that $100,000.
Okay. Yeah. So Angela was saying in terms of translation services for marketing materials, for example, is that out of the 175, or is that something MSHDA can provide?
And I think what Amy said aligns with that. We're looking for you to use that $100,000 to support that. But again, if for some reason there's an issue, then please let us know.
Okay.
And that's some of the reason why we increased it from 75 to 100 to give you some additional funding to be able to do what you need to do on your end.
Okay. And will there be a press release coming from MSHDA to announce the identified leads for the regions?
That's a great question. What do you guys think? Do you want us to do a press release? Do you want to do individual press releases?
I think you guys could do a statewide. I mean, and then, because that shows that you guys are moving forward, and you can put some stuff. And then if you guys want to come in and do stuff, I really think you guys need to come to other districts. So you should spend some time. So come out here, Amy. We'll put you on a glass bottom boat. You can come out and see some of the shipwrecks. But I want to invite you guys up. I really think you guys should come up, into these regions so you can kind of see how the bread gets made, so you can kind of see what we're doing.
That's a great point, and we have already discussed as a MSHDA team that we're going to be out and about at the regional housing partnership meetings too. But the shipwreck tour sounds fabulous, even if it's not super housing.
Wanted to mention there's there's several additional supports for MSHDA doing a press release. And so I can see that MSHDA then would do that, and then you can do whatever you want to do locally.
So if you need help too, we could do a sample press release for all of you to use locally, where you just have to fill in your own info and shoot that out. So you don't have to deal with that. That's easy for us to do. We can provide that as a template. But also just be prepared that when we do the press release, you have to be ready to answer any calls, emails, and questions from press and your regional stakeholders. So we'll just want to make sure if you want us to wait another couple weeks before we do that, because they're going to want to know when your next meeting is. And so we might want to wait until you know when your next meetings are, and then maybe plan for a couple weeks from now to do a press release.
And we can follow up in the communication around that so we can do timing that makes sense, because yes, we will need you to identify a contact person. I know we're short on time, and Luke and CDM had something to contribute to this conversation. So we're going to move forward with them, and then we'll try to answer. Please feel free to start putting comments or questions in the chat, and we'll try to respond that way so we can move forward. Thank you.
I was wondering if what I was going to say was going to be relevant, but all the last 10 minutes of questions have really made me feel that the answer is yes. So just to be quick about it, if we've worked with most of you, I know most of you already, but quickly just to explain, CDM is the Community Economic Development Association in Michigan. We represent folks doing a wide spectrum of grassroots-based community development and economic development. So we're kind of on board to try to knit the threads between the different elements here of this ecosystem, because one of the goals you'll see in the state housing plan, if you haven't seen it already, is to have a lasting and stronger housing ecosystem across the state. So we're going to do a kind of a follow-up survey in partnership with MSU of what you all need. But what I'm hearing and what the questions Amy and Karen and Tiffany have been answering is, that there are going to be things that maybe make sense to do across the regions or in some shared capacity that aren't necessarily in-house already at your agency or aren't necessarily covered by that 100,000. So what we're going to try to do over the next few weeks is really get your feelings on what sort of capacity needs you all might have. Ideally, things that make sense that are needs of multiple regions, so we can kind of help you work together a little bit as well. So we'll do the formatting did not work on my copy and paste there, but as we're closing out here, would love your just feedback in the chat. I have a few options there of some, based on what you know so far, what kinds of needs do you think would be the greatest? And we will follow up with a more detailed and formal survey, but wanted to just get some initial gut reactions now, and would love any additional comments on top of your answer. But you can just throw a letter. You can just throw a letter in there of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Thank you.
If you're muted, if you were chatting.
Right. Thank you, Luke. We will move on with the rest of our presentation. We have a short amount of time, so I'm just going to briefly talk about the timeline and next steps. Lisa, if you can show the slides. Thank you. So just wanted to mention a couple key things to keep in mind is that by the end of the week, we will send you the registration list of individuals that attended the kickoff meeting or registered to attend the kickoff meeting in your region, along with the feedback summary sheets, summary document. We will also, as soon as you can, maybe you don't have a contact person this week, but as soon as you can, if you can let us know who the contact person is that will be responding to community questions. We've been getting feedback from a number of folks saying, I want to be involved, or can you let me know who the contact is? And we've been waiting before we provide information because we want to make sure we identify the right person from your organization. So please share that information with us, and we'll send out, when we send out the feedback summary in the log, we'll provide some additional information on what specifics we would like to see with that. Just wanted to let you know we are working to get grant agreements out to you. So please, when you receive that information from us, please respond as soon as you can. It will be the application for you to sign off and look at the budget. As soon as we receive that sign off, then we can start creating the grant agreements. Our hope is to get that grant agreement to you before the end of May so that your grant can be effective starting June 1st. The other thing is that by May 31st, please let us know if you're going to be requesting facilitation and action planning assistance from MSU. We'll make sure to include that form that they put in the chat for you to respond to them and let them know if you're interested in working with them. If not, and you plan to do this on your own, we ask that you prepare some type of engagement action planning strategy document communicating to us how you plan to lead this effort. We want to make sure that it's an inclusive process, and we want to have an understanding of how you plan to proceed if you decide that you are not, you don't need to work with the MSUE, and that is fine. We just want to have a better understanding of what you will be doing. Next slide. Just wanted to know, in June, we are asking again to have that document to us by June 16th, but also too, we are indicating that you should be preparing to get your action plans together as well. And so we know that action planning will be taking place, and that we're hoping, of course, that you have your action plans to us by the end of August. So in June, it will be your organization's planning meetings or meeting with partners and action planning underway. And we also expect that to take place in July as well. Next slide. Again, in August, their action plans, we would like to receive those by August 31st. And then September through July, September of 2023 through July 31st of 2024, there will be regional meetings underway. So once you've completed the action plan, we'll be looking for you to start implementing those plans and letting us know how we can support that effort, along with the quarterly progress reports, letting us know how progress is being made. Next slide. So please feel free throughout this process to call MSHDA staff with questions. As I mentioned before, as soon as you know who that contact person is within your region, please let us know. When you receive the request from us, the Housing Development Fund application, please respond to us so we can get that grant agreement in place. Let MSU know if you want them to assist you with facilitating these community meetings. And we also would like to know in June when you will be planning your first meeting. The Statewide Housing Partnership is very interested in having that information as well. They may be joining some of those meetings. And so in June, if we look forward to you sharing some of those meeting dates that have been identified.
Tiffany, if I can, sorry to interject, but we have also been requested by lots of trade associations across the state to know when the next meetings are occurring for the regional housing partnership. So we will also be sharing that, like with the home builders, the community college associations, the Small Business Association of Michigan. There's folks that really want to try to be engaged. And so we're going to send out to them when your next meetings are in those locations. So we'll keep you updated on that too, so you know who they're going to.
All right, next slide. So we are at the end. Thank you for your time. I can stay on a little longer if you have additional questions. And please feel free to email us at any time, and we will make sure to respond as soon as we can to answer any questions that you may have.
There is a quick additional question. Well, it's probably not quick, but just, you know, as soon as we find out if the funds are available as cash or reimbursement, to let them know, because it affects some of their planning with co-leads and distributing the funds.
Okay, we'll do that and look to get a response before the end of the week. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.